Hello and welcome to the composition element for the Victoria College exams grade 7. Now for the grade 7 you're required to write a piece in sonata form. So sonata form is a very important kind of form that was very popular in the classical era, and it has certain key sections that you need to follow, which is shown within this book. So within a sonata form you have the exposition first, and with the exposition you have the first subject, which is normally in the tonic key. Then you do what's called a transition, sometimes called a bridge passage, which leads the key and the mood into the second subject, which again is a different theme, a different idea, and so sometimes that is usually put in the dominant key or the relative major or minor. Then you round it off with a tiny little codetta to finish off the exposition. Then you move into the development section. Now in the development section the composer develops lots of material, and usually it's some of the material that is used in the exposition, so you might get a little motive that you've explored and used, just a tiny bit of maybe the theme 1 or the theme 2, the first subject or second subject, and then you might develop it a little bit and just change it using some of the techniques that you might have used in the variation form. So you develop that theme and then use it to write your development section. Then finally you move on to the recapitulation. And so in the recapitulation it's really a copy of the exposition again. So you return to the first subject, back in the tonic key, you then have your transition or your bridge passage again, then your second subject, and then finish off with another codetta. Now again, I do recommend that before you start writing this composition, you make a decision on how many bars each of the sections is, and you make it very symmetrical. So say for example, in the exposition you might decide to have your first subject 8 bars, then you might decide to have the transition, maybe 8 bars, and then the second subject 8 bars. So that's 24 bars, you see, in the exposition alone. So think about having the development as the same amount of bars, and then of course your recapitulation will be that as well. But make a decision how many bars you're going to use in the exposition, and again make it a nice rounded number, and then you have your whole framework to work within. Now they've put in this book an example of a nice piece which is in sonata form called the sonatina. And what I suggest you do with this before you actually start, again this is a composition that's down on the keyboard syllabus, and a sonatina is like a mini sonata, so it's a good example of this to write a small one. You can see here how many bars are actually in this. I would analyse it, identify and count all the bars that are actually here, and then from that work out where the first subject is, where the bridge passage is, and the second subject. Work out where the development starts and look and see how structured this is, and you'll see when you look through that there are a set amount of bars, the same amount of bars for the exposition, the development and the recapitulation, and see if there's any codettas in it. Use this as an analysis first. I would also look at finding some sonatinas and maybe playing your own sonatinas or sonatas when you're actually doing your exam as a little bit of help towards the composition, so you get more familiar about sonata form and how to play pieces that are in sonata form. And all of this will help you produce a really good, outstanding composition for this element of the exam. So that completes this element of the examination.